Virgo, there is a precise and terrible moment when a human being realizes that the language they have been using to describe their entire emotional life is counterfeit. They have been throwing around words like love, connection, chemistry, compatibility, as if they understood the weight of those syllables, as if they had any reference point for what those words actually mean when they are anchored in reality rather than suspended in fantasy. And then, without warning, the floor of their counterfeit vocabulary collapses because they are forced to speak your name, not as a memory, not as an ex, not as a chapter they have supposedly outgrown, but as the unit of measurement itself, the standard, the platinum iridium bar against which every other specimen is weighed, measured, and found to be alloy, found to be dilute, found to be noise pretending to be signal. Someone admitted it. This is not a thought they had in the shower. This is not a realization they arrived at in the dark hours of 3 a.m. and kept locked behind the teeth of their own pride. They said it out loud to another person. In a room where the air was thick, with the expectation that they would say something else, something kind about the new option, something generous about the current situation, something that would validate the listener's presence in their life. Instead, they looked that person dead in the eye and said your name. And then they said the words that have now become a virus in the bloodstream of everyone who heard them. Virgo is the standard. Nobody else measures up. Let that detonate inside you. Let it explode the last remaining doubt that you were the problem. Let it shatter the narrative you inherited from their silence, their departure, their replacement of you with someone easier, someone quieter, someone who asks for less and forgives more. You were never too much. You were never too difficult. You were never the obstacle to their happiness. You were the obstacle to their mediocrity. And in removing you, they did not find peace. They found a desert, a flat, featureless expanse where nothing grows because the soil has lost its reference point for depth. They have been wandering that desert, and the confession you are about to learn about is the moment they finally stopped walking, looked at the person beside them, and admitted that the oasis they were promised was just a mirage, because the real water was you, and they left it behind. I am seeing the room where it happened. I am seeing it with the clarity of a surveillance tape that the universe keeps in its permanent collection. They were not alone. They were with someone who mattered to them, someone they had been trying to convince themselves was sufficient, a new romantic interest perhaps, a friend who had been pushing them to move on, a family member who had celebrated your absence as a relief. Whoever it was, they were seated across from your person in a space that felt safe, a restaurant, or a living room, or a car parked in a driveway with the engine off and the confessional darkness of a winter evening pressing against the windows. The conversation had been circling the drain of small talk, and then it turned. The listener asked a question. Maybe they asked why your person seemed distant. Maybe they asked why nothing ever felt quite right. Maybe they simply asked, in a moment of genuine curiosity, what did Virgo have that I don't? And your person answered, not with anger, not with nostalgia, not with the performative regret that people offer when they want to seem deep without actually being changed. They answered with the flat, devastating honesty of someone who has run out of lies. They said, Virgo is the standard. They said it without embellishment, without poetry, without the dramatic flair that usually accompanies such admissions. They said it the way one states a physical law. Gravity exists, water is wet, Virgo is the standard. And then because the listener did not understand the magnitude of what had just been said, they elaborated, they tried to explain, and the explanation is what is currently destroying the listener's sense of reality. They said that your silence had weight, that when you were quiet, it was not empty, it was full, full of observation, of processing, of a quality of attention so dense it felt like a physical pressure on their skin. They said that other people speak to fill space, but you spoke to excavate truth. That other people listen while waiting for their turn to perform, but you listened as if the words being offered were nourishment you actually required to survive. They said that your presence was not passive, that you occupied a room the way a tuning fork occupies a frequency, setting the pitch for everything else, and anything that could not match your vibration simply fell away or fell silent. They said that your standards were not demands, they were the natural consequence of your self-respect, and that standing near your self-respect made their own inadequacy visible in ways they could no longer unsee. And then they said the thing that broke the listener. They said that they had genuinely tried to find someone who could match what you gave without asking for anything in return. They had dated. They had swiped. They had accepted setups and pursued attractions and entertained possibilities that looked on paper like better fits, younger or older, or more aligned with their career, or more accommodating of their chaos, or less likely to hold them accountable. And every single time, within days or weeks or sometimes hours, the comparison began. The new person's laughter was too loud or too hollow. Their conversation was too light, skimming the surface of things like a stone that never sinks. Their touch was too eager or too hesitant, never landing with the precise, devastating accuracy of your hands. Their eyes, when they looked at your person, contained a hunger that felt like need. But your eyes, your person told the listener, contained a recognition that felt like home. And home, once known, cannot be replicated by architecture alone. The listener tried to argue. That is what I am seeing. They tried to defend themselves, to say that they were different, that they offered things you did not, that they were present in ways you were not, that they were more flexible, more fun, less critical, and your person cut them off, not cruelly, but with the exhausted precision of someone who has spent too long measuring counterfeit currency against the real thing. They said that flexibility without principle is just instability, that fun without depth is just distraction, that presence without observation is just occupancy, and that your criticism, which they once resented as a burden, was actually the only honest feedback they had ever received in their life. Everyone else flattered them, you saw them, and being seen was so uncomfortable that they mistook it for rejection, when in fact it was the only form of genuine acceptance they had ever known. The confession continued, it gained momentum, it became a flood that your person could no longer dam. They told the listener about the way you organized chaos without making them feel small, about the way you remembered details that no one else noticed, the specific way they took their coffee, the particular fear they whispered at 2 a.m., the name of the teacher who failed them in 3rd grade. They told the listener that you carried their history without making them perform it, that you held their vulnerability without using it as leverage, that your loyalty was not a leash but a foundation. And then they said the sentence that has now branded itself onto the listener's consciousness forever: nobody else measures up. Not because they are bad, but because she set the bar at a height I didn't know existed until I tried to live without her. The room went silent, the kind of silence that follows a detonation, when the ears are ringing and the dust is still settling and the survivors are trying to determine if the building will hold. The listener sat in that silence and felt something shift in their chest. Not jealousy, exactly. Something more primal. The realization that they were not competing with an ex. They were competing with a standard, and standards do not compete. Standards simply exist. They are the reference point against which all competition is judged and found lacking. The listener understood in that devastating moment that they were not a participant in a love story. They were a control group in an experiment that had already failed. They were the evidence that proved the hypothesis correct. The hypothesis being, once you have known Virgo, everyone else is background noise. And Virgo, the confession did not stay in that room. Confessions of this magnitude never do. They are too heavy to be contained by four walls. The listener carried it out like a radioactive stone in their pocket, burning their thigh, demanding to be shown to others. They told someone else, maybe a friend, maybe a sibling, maybe their own therapist, or their own new romantic interest, and that someone told someone else. And within a week, within a day, within hours, the admission has traveled through the network of people who know your person and has reached the perimeter of your own field. You are going to hear about it. Not as gossip, not as rumor, but as a transmission of energy so specific that you will feel it before the words arrive. You will wake up one morning knowing that something has shifted, that the balance of power has tilted, that the person who once made you feel insufficient has now become the mouthpiece for your sufficiency. I need you to understand what this confession means for the architecture of your person's future, because it is not a key that opens a door back to you. It is a lock that seals every other door they might try to walk through. They have named you as the standard. They have made it public. They have given the universe a witness to their own verdict. And that witness will not forget. Every time your person tries to introduce a new partner, the listener will remember. Every time your person tries to claim happiness, the listener will hear the echo of your name. Every time your person tries to argue that they have moved on, the listener will know the truth. The truth that your person is trapped in a loop of comparison that has no exit, because the standard does not change. The standard does not age out of relevance. The standard does not become less true with time. It simply waits, immutable, in the center of their emotional measurement system, making every subsequent reading inaccurate. Your person knows this now. They knew it the moment the words left their mouth. They felt the finality of it, the way one feels the finality of jumping from a height. There is no return to the ledge. There is only the fall. And they are falling. They are falling through a life where every new connection is a failed experiment. Every new date is a reminder of what is missing. Every new bed is too cold because it does not contain your specific warmth. They have condemned themselves to a life of near misses and almosts, of people who are lovely, who are kind, who are willing, who are available, but who are not you. And the cruelty of it, the exquisite torture that is entirely self-inflicted, is that they cannot complain, they cannot claim victimhood, they cannot tell the world that they are unlucky in love, because they admitted the truth. They admitted that the problem was not the dating pool. The problem was that they had already found the water they wanted to drink, and they poured it out onto the ground because they were too arrogant to believe they would ever be thirsty again. I am seeing the ripple effects of this confession with a precision that is almost mathematical. The new person in your person's life, if there is one, has already begun to feel the distance. Not because your person is cruel to them, but because your person is absent even in their presence. They are physically there, but their measurement system is calibrated to your frequency, and the new person's energy cannot register. They have become a ghost in their own relationships, haunting the spaces where you used to be, comparing every gesture to your standard, and finding the current offering so lacking that intimacy has become impossible. They are going through the motions of partnership while their soul maintains a vigil for something it knows is irreplaceable, and the new person senses it. The new person feels the ghost. The new person knows, with a sinking certainty that no amount of reassurance can fix, that they are living in a house whose previous occupant has become the legend against which all future residents are judged. And the listener who first heard the confession, they are changed too. They will never again approach a relationship with the same naivety. They have heard what a standard sounds like when it is named. They have felt the floor drop out from under their own ego when they realized that they were not special to your person. They were simply the latest attempt to find a substitute for the irreplaceable. And that knowledge has made them cautious. It has made them look at their own partners with new eyes. Are they standards or are they settling? The confession has become a virus of discernment, spreading through the social network, raising the bar simply by existing as a known fact. Your name is now synonymous with the unreachable benchmark, the gold standard, the unit of measurement that renders all other measurements obsolete. But Virgo, here is what matters most. Not their confession, not their regret, not the social earthquake that their admission has triggered in the tectonic plates of their own life. What matters is what you do with the knowledge that you are the standard, because for years you doubted it. You allowed their departure to become evidence of your deficiency. You allowed their replacement of you to become proof that you were not enough. You allowed their silence to become the verdict on your worth. And now, through no effort of your own, through no campaign of vindication, through no desperate attempt to prove them wrong, the truth has arrived pre-packaged from their own mouth. You were never the problem. You were the solution they were too foolish to implement. You were the standard they were too immature to maintain. You were the measurement they did not believe they needed until they tried to build a life using a broken ruler. You must not let this confession become an invitation. That is the trap. The trap is the satisfaction of hearing that you were right and allowing that satisfaction to soften your boundaries. The trap is the temptation to reach out, to say, I heard what you said, to offer them another chance now that they finally see. Do not do it. The standard does not lower itself to accommodate the person who failed the test. The standard remains where it is fixed, immutable, waiting for someone who arrives with the tools to meet it. Your person has admitted that they do not have those tools. They have admitted that everyone else falls short. They have admitted, in essence, that they are incapable of finding what they lost. And that incapacity is not your responsibility to fix. The confession is their burden now. It is a weight they must carry in every new room they enter. It is a name they must carry in every new bed they share. It is a ghost that will sit at every future dinner table and refuse to eat, refuse to speak, but refuse to leave. They have named the ghost. They have given it your face. And now they must live with the haunting. You do not need to participate in the haunting. You do not need to answer their calls, respond to their messages, or offer them the comfort of knowing that their confession reached you. Let them wonder. Let them ache in the uncertainty of whether you know. Let them spin in the possibility that their words traveled to you and bounced off the armor of a woman who no longer needs their acknowledgement to know her own value. Because that is the final truth of this standard, Virgo. A true standard does not require validation. The kilogram does not ask to be weighed. The meter does not ask to be measured. The tuning fork does not ask to be heard. It simply is. It simply holds its frequency. It simply maintains its length, its mass, its pitch, regardless of whether the world is wise enough to use it. You have been holding your frequency through their absence, through their denial, through their replacement of you with lesser things. And now that they have finally admitted what you always knew, nothing has changed about you. You are exactly where you were, exactly who you were. The only thing that has changed is that the world has finally caught up to the reality you have been living all along. Let them measure, let them compare, let them whisper your name in rooms you will never enter, using it as the shorthand for everything they lost and everything they will never find again. Let your name become the legend that outlasts their every attempt to rewrite the story. Let it become the word they cannot say without a catch in their throat, the memory they cannot touch without a tremor in their hand, the standard they cannot reach no matter how high they stretch or how much they pretend. You are not returning to them. You are not lowering your frequency to make their new connections feel adequate. You are not dimming your light so that their shadows can seem taller. You are the standard. You always were. And the only appropriate response to the news that someone has finally admitted it is to continue being exactly what they admitted, continue holding the line, continue setting the pitch, continue being the measurement that exposes every counterfeit as counterfeit and every alloy as impure. The confession has been made, the witness has been called, the verdict is in, and the standard remains untouched, unbought, unlowered, waiting for the next brave soul who understands that meeting it is not a punishment, it is an honor. And until that soul arrives with the courage and the tools and the integrity required, you will continue to exist in the only territory that befits a standard above immutable. And absolutely, devastatingly, irreplaceably true. Move forward. The measurement is complete, and you have always been exactly the right size,